Hi, and welcome to this edition of Breastfeeding Buddies. My name is Heidi, and today we're going to be talking about the hospital stay. Colorado has something that's called the Colorado Can-Do 5. I don't know if you've heard of that, but these are 5 practices that when healthy moms and babies experience all 5 at the hospital, moms have better success with breastfeeding and breastfeed longer. And these 5 things are things that you can ask for when you go to the hospital. The first one is to latch your baby to the breast within an hour after delivery. The baby's strongest instinct to suck is that first hour, and so that's an easy time to get them to the breast. This is also a great time to do skin to skin with your baby. That helps your baby facilitate and adapt to their new environment, and it also helps with breastfeeding. The second Can-Do 5 is to make sure you're not giving your baby anything but breast milk at the hospital. The first milk that you have is called colostrum, and it's a yellowish, thicker liquid, and that's all the baby needs. Moms don't produce a lot of colostrum, but there's a reason for that. It's because the baby's stomach is very small in the beginning and they don't need a lot to fill up their tummies. Mom's breast milk production will increase rapidly. She'll be producing about 20 ounces by the end of the first week. Moms want to make sure when they're at the hospital that they have unrestricted breastfeeding. Whenever the baby seems hungry, latching that baby to the breast, the more often that you feed, the more milk you'll produce. The more milk out, the more you produce. So just keeping in mind how that milk is made. Babies are feeding frequently in the beginning, usually about 8 to 12 times in 24 hours, usually about every 1.5 to 3 hours. The third Colorado Can-Do 5 is to try to keep the baby in the room with you. They call that rooming in. This is really a time for you to get to know your baby and learn your baby's feeding cues. Feeding cues tell you when the baby's hungry. When a baby's hungry, they often will turn their head to the side, they open and close their mouth, they might suck on their fingers, suck on their fists, and when moms see those signs, she can grab the baby, latch them to the breast, and get going with breastfeeding. The fourth one of the Colorado Can-Do 5 is to not give your baby a pacifier while you're in the hospital. Babies suck differently at the breast than they do on an artificial nipple like a pacifier or a bottle, and sometimes if they have those artificial nipples early on, they have more trouble latching to the breast. Also, a pacifier can delay feedings. If you think about it, if a baby's sucking on a pacifier, then mom might miss feeding cues, the opening and closing of the mouth or chewing on the fists, and it can delay feedings. And if enough feedings are delayed, or if they're delayed enough, then it can actually affect mom's milk supply and the baby's growth. The last one of the Colorado Can-Do 5 is to make sure that you have a number to call when you leave the hospital if you have any questions or concerns. This can be your WIC office, the hospital lactation program, a community support group, but you just want to make sure that if you have any questions or concerns, you have a place to reach out to get your questions answered and to get support. Another thing that moms don't think about in the hospital is limiting hospital visitors. If moms have people constantly in their room, they may not be comfortable breastfeeding in front of other people in the beginning, so they might delay feedings. The hospital staff may have trouble finding time to come in and talk to mom. This is really a time for them to do education and help mom with breastfeeding. And if people are already in the room, it may be hard for them to find that time. Also, a baby might shut down if they're being passed from person to person. They just get overstimulated. So whoever's at the hospital with mom, it's important that they institute no visiting hours and really have time scheduled that just mom and baby can be together to get to know each other, to practice breastfeeding, and there's plenty of time once the mom gets home for friends and family to come over and meet the new baby. It's also important that moms know about something called the feedback inhibitor of lactation. We sometimes call it Dr. Phil, but basically what that is a protein that will be excreted in the milk. So if the mom is not regularly emptying her breasts in the beginning, that protein will be excreted and that will start the drying up process. And then lastly, I just wanted to talk about skin to skin for a minute again. It's so important. All babies really should be held skin to skin right after delivery. Procedures like weighing and measuring, all of that should wait until the first breastfeed has happened. Holding a baby skin to skin, like I mentioned, really does help them adapt to their new environment. It helps stabilize their heart rate and breathing patterns. Studies have shown that babies who are held skin to skin latch correctly. They have less crying in the first 24 hours, and it helps to stabilize their body temperature. After an uninterrupted period of skin-to-skin time with mom, most babies will show readiness to feed. So really, holding the baby skin-to-skin can help overcome a lot of those early breastfeeding challenges. There was one recent study that was done where they looked at what happened with 21,842 moms that delivered over 19 hospitals, and they found that the longer that the baby was held skin-to-skin in the first 3 hours after birth, the more likely that mom was to leave the hospital without giving any kind of a formula supplement. So if moms can keep from giving that formula at the hospital, it helps again get more milk out of the breast, they build a better supply, and they have better success with breastfeeding after they leave the hospital. So these, again, are things that you can ask for and talk to your doctor about and the hospital staff about before delivery. So think through your birth plan and make sure that you talk to people before you actually go to the hospital. So thanks for joining in today. We hope that you'll join us again next week, same time, same place, Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Thanks.